Buy this, and you'll be loved. Own this, and you'll finally be someone. And so we stay hypnotized. We spend money we haven't earned to impress people we don't even like. We are searching for a glow that eventually extinguishes our own internal light. You've likely felt it, that cold, hollow weight in your chest at 2 a.m. when you find yourself motionless, staring as a social media feed or an online store scrolls endlessly before your eyes. You ignite with the desire to buy something again and again just by seeing a beautiful image. It feels like this one new thing is exactly what's missing for you to finally feel happy. But for a second, you stop and think, and you realize it's all an illusion. Once again, your psyche requires a purpose, a reason to exist beyond the next paycheck, but the system hands you a price tag instead. It discovered our greatest weakness, our vanity, and used it to build the most profitable empire in history, the empire of illusion. We live in the era of the display, a time where freedom is sold in monthly installments and happiness is found on the clearance rack. Look at us. Everything around us shines, but nothing illuminates. Everything is brand new, yet nothing remains. We've traded the gold of the soul for the plastic of appearance. We've become faithful devotees of the great consumption, kneeling before flickering screens that promise us the world but deliver only emptiness. You're probably nodding right now because you've seen the trick. We are taught to hunger for what we don't need. We are trained to crave the very things that make us miserable. We chase a mirage that disappears the moment we touch it. Debt is the modern form of slavery, and the smile in the advertisement is the new golden shackle. The system has learned to transform your natural desire into a permanent dependence. You feel like you're choosing, but you're just picking the color of your chains. The price of every object is always the same. It's not measured in dollars or euros. It's measured in life, in the hours, days, and years you'll never get back. We don't own our things own our time. Now ask yourself a question that most people are too exhausted to even consider. Why were we never taught how money actually works? Think back to those 12 years of schooling. You spent thousands of hours memorizing the periodic table, the dates of medieval battles, and the complex anatomy of a cell. But not a single hour was dedicated to explaining how a debt-based economy functions, how interest rates erode your future, or how the banking system literally creates money out of your promise to pay it back. It's because financial education was never the priority. Obedience was. You've likely felt that creeping sense of heaviness as a child, sitting behind a rigid wooden desk for 8 hours a day, staring at a clock that seemed to move backward. Your psyche requires movement, creation, and curiosity, but the system required you to be still. It required you to ask for permission to speak, permission to eat, and even permission to satisfy a basic human need like using the restroom. This wasn't just schooling. This was the beginning of what we call the 3 stages of domestication. The modern school system was designed during the Industrial Revolution with one specific goal: to produce predictable employees for factories. You were taught that success means following instructions to the letter and waiting for a bell to tell you when your time is your own. You weren't being prepared for the complexity of life. You were being calibrated for a cubicle. Your teachers rewarded the correct answer, never the interesting question. They taught you to fear failure, which is the exact opposite of how a free human mind learns. By the time you graduated, the system had successfully replaced your natural curiosity with a permanent craving for external validation. You became a person who waits for instructions. Once the school system breaks your will, the professional world rewards your compliance. They call it career growth, but for most, it's a sophisticated trade. You give them 40 years of your vitality, your best daylight hours, and your mental energy. In exchange, they give you just enough digital currency to keep you coming back on Monday morning. Your psyche requires creative autonomy, but the corporate world requires a specialized gear. You've probably felt that imposter syndrome at your job, that nagging feeling that you are just pretending to care about quarterly reports or synergy That's not a flaw in your character. It's your intuition screaming that you were designed for more than filling out spreadsheets. Your brain is a supercomputer, but they've got you using it to calculate profit margins for products that don't need to exist. To understand why you feel like a cog in a machine, you have to look at the Prussian model of education. In the late 18th century, the goal wasn't to create innovators. It was to create soldiers and factory workers who followed orders without question. This is why we have bells, uniform rows of desks, and standardized testing. The system was literally engineered to break the dangerous spirit of independent thought. You were trained to wait for permission to act, a trait that makes you the perfect compliant employee today. Your exhaustion isn't a flaw. It's the result of a 200-year-old design intended to keep you manageable. And next stage, the mortgage as the anchor. This is the final heavy blow. The moment you sign for that dream home or that high-interest auto loan, your rebellion officially dies. The system calls this settling down, but it's actually the moment you become a debt-servicing unit. You can no longer afford to say no to a boss you despise. You can no longer afford to take a risk on a passion project. You are now anchored to the machine by a 30-year chain of payments. You have been domesticated. You are now a citizen who is too tired to protest and too indebted to walk away. The system doesn't need thinkers, it needs specialized units. It needs you just smart enough to run the software, but just ignorant enough to never ask why the software exists in the first place. You've likely felt that your life is a series of waiting for the weekend, but have you ever stopped to ask why the other 5 days of your week belong to someone else? Modern slavery isn't called forced labor anymore, it's called professional development and creditworthiness. And as long as you remain ignorant of how these gears turn, you will continue to be the fuel that keeps them moving. Now let's look at the mirror, not the one in your hallway, but the digital one you carry in your pocket. Have you ever wondered why, after purchasing that item you desperately needed, the satisfaction lasted only until the packaging hit the trash can? This is the core of the economy of emptiness. Your psyche requires a sense of identity, a feeling of being someone in a world of billions, but the system has realized that a self-actualized human is a terrible customer. A person who is content with themselves doesn't need to buy a new wardrobe every season or upgrade to a titanium-framed smartphone. To keep the gears of the empire turning, they had to dismantle your identity and sell it back to you, one brand at a time. You've likely felt this, the strange phantom itch that you aren't enough. You feel that your current car, your current clothes, and even your current skin are just placeholders for a better version of you that exists only in a 15-second advertisement. This manipulation isn't accidental. It's a science that dates back to Edward Bernays, the man who turned citizens into consumers. Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud, realized that if you could link products to deep-seated emotional desires, people would buy things they didn't need. Take his Torches of Freedom campaign in 1929. He didn't sell cigarettes to women by talking about tobacco. He sold them as a symbol of liberation, power, and social status. He proved that you can control a population not by force, but by appealing to their subconscious insecurities. Today's luxury brands are just Bernays' ghost on steroids, convincing your psyche that a logo can heal your soul. We have entered a state of social anesthesia where we numb the pain of our purposelessness with the temporary high of a new transaction. But why does the high always fade? Science calls this the hedonic treadmill. Your brain is biologically wired to return to a baseline level of happiness, no matter how much you acquire. When you buy that new device, your dopamine spikes, but within weeks, it becomes the new normal. You aren't unlucky because you aren't satisfied. You are a victim of a biological trap. The system counts on this adaptation. It knows that once the high of the purchase wears off, you'll be back at the showcase, searching for the next hit. Your psyche requires genuine connection and community, but the system offers you a premium membership instead. We've turned brands into our new denominations and shopping malls into our cathedrals. Think about the unboxing culture. Why do millions of us watch videos of other people opening boxes? Because the system has successfully fetishized the moment of acquisition while making the actual object irrelevant. We are addicted to the promise, not the product. You've probably noticed how your social media feed seems to know your insecurities better than your closest friends. The algorithms aren't just predicting your needs, they are creating them. They feed you a constant stream of curated perfection, forcing your brain into a state of permanent comparison. You are essentially paying for the privilege of feeling inadequate. We are spending the currency of our lives, our limited hours of heartbeat and breath, to accumulate symbols of a status that doesn't actually exist. We are drowning in a sea of stuff, yet we are starving for substance. The system whispers that you are just one more purchase away from being complete. But as you've likely realized at 2 a.m, that final piece of the puzzle never arrives. It can't, because the moment you feel complete, the system loses its power over you. In this economy, your emptiness isn't a problem to be solved. It's a resource to be mined. Have you ever wondered why, despite all our technological progress, we have less free time than a medieval peasant? We were promised that machines would do our work and that the 21st century would be an age of leisure. Instead, we are the most exhausted generation in human history. This is not a failure of the system, it is one of its most vital features. Your psyche requires stillness to reflect, to question, and to rebel. But a mind that is constantly on the clock is a mind that is too tired to be dangerous. The system doesn't just want your labor, it wants your exhaustion. This is the strategy of perpetual friction. To understand the roots of this fatigue, we have to look back at the birth of the 40-hour workweek. It wasn't designed for your well-being. It was a compromise born from the industrial era to ensure that the human unit was utilized to its maximum capacity without completely breaking. But today the factory has followed you home. With the invention of the smartphone, the office is now in your pocket, in your bedroom, and at your dinner table. The system has successfully eliminated the boundary between living and servicing debt. Think about that heavy mental fog that settles over you after an 8-hour day of performative productivity. When you get home, you don't have the energy to start a project, to read a challenging book, or to organize your community. This is because you are suffering from decision fatigue. When you spend your day making micro decisions about emails and deadlines, your capacity for big picture thinking vanishes. But why do we keep running when we know the race is rigged? Psychology gives us a chilling answer through the Asch conformity experiment. Solomon Asch proved that the majority of people will knowingly ignore the truth just to fit in with the group. If everyone around you is hustling, buying houses they can't afford, and bragging about their 60-hour work weeks, your brain perceives rest as a social risk. We are terrified of being the only one who stops. We aren't just exhausted by work, we are exhausted by the mental energy it takes to maintain the facade of keeping up. You've probably felt that your life is just a series of logistical maneuvers, shuttling between chores, screens, and sleep. This is by design. A person who is worried about their rent, their credit score, and their overflowing inbox is a person who doesn't have the luxury of asking, "Is this all there is?" The system keeps you in a permanent fight or flight response because stressed people are easier to manipulate. Stressed people look for quick fixes. They look for comfort food, retail therapy, and strong leaders who promise security. Your psyche requires deep rhythmic rest, but the modern world has declared war on the night. We are the only species that overrides its natural biological rhythms for the sake of quarterly dividends. The most terrifying part is that we have been trained to feel guilty for resting. That internalized manager in your head, whispering that you are falling behind while you sleep, is the ultimate form of enslavement. Your exhaustion is the wall of your prison. As long as you are too tired to breathe, you will never be strong enough to break the locks. The system doesn't fear your anger. It fears your rest, because in rest there is clarity, and in clarity there is the end of the illusion. We have spent this time dissecting the anatomy of our own enslavement, but now we must face the most uncomfortable truth of all. The door to your cell was never locked. It was only guarded by your own fear and the noise of a world that refuses to be quiet. The great shift begins when you realize that in a world designed to keep you shouting for attention, your greatest act of rebellion is silence. Your psyche requires a moment of genuine stillness, a sanctuary where the algorithms cannot reach you and the voices of marketing cannot be heard. This is not about escaping to a mountaintop or deleting all your accounts. It is about cognitive decolonization. It is about reclaiming the territory of your own mind. Think about that sudden, sharp clarity when a power outage happens or when you lose your phone for a day. For a few hours, the illusion vanishes. You notice the way the light hits the floor. You hear your own heartbeat. You remember that you are a biological miracle, not a consumer unit. This is the shift. It is the moment you move from being a victim of the system to being an observer of it. The system cannot sell you what you already possess. This is why simplicity is the ultimate weapon. We've been trained to view minimalism as a trend or a design choice. It is not. It is a defensive strategy. Every time you say, "I do not need this," you are reclaiming a piece of your life force. You are taking back the hours of work you would have spent to pay for that object. You are quite literally buying back your freedom. Your psyche requires creative expression, but the system offers you creative consumption. It wants you to watch others live, others build, and others play. The shift happens when you pick up the tool instead of the remote, when you invest in a skill that cannot be taken away by a market crash. When you prioritize self-knowledge over social status. We need to talk about the tranquility dividend. This is the psychological profit you gain when you stop participating in the status race. While everyone else is running on the dopamine treadmill, gasping for air and clutching their new gadgets, you are sitting on the sidelines, calm and composed. That peace of mind is the only true wealth in the 21st century. You probably feel a sense of resistance right now. A voice in your head saying, "But I need to keep up, I'll be left behind." Ask yourself, left behind from what? A race toward burnout. A competition to see who can have the most expensive funeral. The system survives on your FOMO, your fear of missing out. But the moment you embrace the joy of missing out, the system loses its grip. When you are no longer afraid of being outdated, you become dangerous. You become a person who cannot be bribed with a promotion or intimidated with a bill. The shift is not an event. It is a daily practice of refusal. It is the choice to value your time more than your look. It is the decision to nourish your soul with depth instead of your ego with shallow likes. It is the realization that the most luxurious thing you can own is a clear conscience and a schedule that belongs entirely to you. The bars of a cage are only as strong as your belief in them. We've been told that to be successful is to accumulate, but we are here to tell you that to be free is to let go. This is the moment you stop being a passenger in a narrative written by a corporation and start being the author of your own existence. This is the manifesto of the lucid. Your psyche requires a return to the essentials, to the raw, unfiltered experience of being alive. The system survives on your noise, your hurry, and your constant comparison to others. It thrives when you are anxious and collapses when you are calm. Therefore, your calm is your greatest weapon. Prosperity is not found in a bank balance that requires your soul as collateral. True prosperity is the freedom to own your mornings, to speak your truth, and to live without the crushing weight of interest rates. You've likely felt a spark of recognition during this video, a part of you that has been asleep waiting for permission to wake up. That spark is your intuition, and it's telling you that the American dream or the corporate ladder was never your dream to begin with. It was a pre-packaged fantasy sold to you so you would stay in line. From this day forward, let your value be measured by your depth, not your display. Choose the tranquility dividend over the status symbol. Understand that the most revolutionary thing you can do in a consumerist society is to be satisfied. When you are enough, you are no longer a target. When you have enough, you are no longer a slave. We are building a community of those who refuse to be hypnotized. If this message resonated with the part of you that is searching for more than just more, then you belong here. This journey toward lucidity is not one you have to walk alone. Join us by subscribing to this channel. By doing so, you aren't just hitting a button, you are joining a collective movement of people who are choosing awareness over anesthesia. We are here to dismantle the illusions together, to share the tools of mental decolonization, and to remind each other that the most beautiful things in life are the ones money could never buy. Do not let this clarity fade the moment you close this tab. Feed it, protect it. The system will try to pull you back into the scroll, back into the FOMO, back into the debt. Don't let it. Listen to the voice that says enough. Share this video with one person you know who is currently drowning in the noise. One person who is exhausted, overworked, and searching for a way out. Be the signal in their static. The world changes when one mind opens, and today that mind was yours. The exit is right in front of you. Step through it.